Awesome. So this is the next edition of a hallway hangout for the Full Sighting Outreach Program. You can find us in FSC Outreach Experiment and Make Slack. I'm joined with an amazing collection of people right now. This is really fun. Thank you all for popping in on a Friday. For context, July 30th, 2021. So if you hear us talk about something many years in the future and it sounds bizarre because things have changed so much, just keep that in mind. Let's see. So I have a list of issues. I always bring a list of things that are kind of on my mind that I've been looking at, but I did want to open up the floor in case anyone else had something that they saw or wanted to talk about. Yeah, because it's not just all about the things I see. You all pick up on things that I would never come across. And if no one has anything, I can pull up my list. Joe?
Yeah, I'm for context, I'm that guy in class who, like, if nobody said anything, I'd have to say something.
I'm also like that.
Yeah. When I started teaching in the classroom, I was like, how come no, like in my classes, people would always talk? And I was like, I was the people who talk. I noticed in recording the aforementioned course with TT1 blocks that the global styles didn't reliably apply. I don't know if this is like a bug thing or if this is like a big picture thing, but I was using TT1 blocks in the course. I set some global styles using like a white background and Hoffler text. And they showed in the full site editor, but not on the front end. And my speculation was that the theme.json file was like taking precedence over everything.
I was like, I bet it sounds like a bug. I don't know if Carolina, because I know you've done a lot of work on that theme.
Yeah, my general feeling right now is that since 5.8 was released, debugging has become so much more difficult.
Yeah, that was
you
kind of
find issues, but they're difficult to reproduce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you can send like the setup you did, I'm happy to replicate and see if I can figure out. Because I mean, I have so many test sites at this point too. I can test it across different things. Was Gutenberg installed and activated when you were? I'm guessing it was if TT1 was in place.
Yeah. So it was the Gutenberg plugin,
the latest version,
5.8
okay.
and TT1 blocks. Which I mean, it's in the video, right? Because like one of the videos is like global styles, and I'm like, this isn't working. But remember, this is like super experimental. Like, who knows? But this is how you use global
Exhibit
styles.
A of this.
Yeah.
Global styles also, the UI is going to change a lot. Like that's actually one of the things that's on my list. Well, because they haven't really figured out exactly. G2 components was supposed to like replace kind of how the current global styles UI was going to look. But then there's also this element someone suggested a couple of weeks ago, I think, to have like a separate place for styles. I think I actually talked about it on the last whole hangout. So yeah, that's like one of the big ones I'm excited about for 5.9, but that's so critical to get right. And we haven't actually tested it with the outreach program because it's been so like in flux. So I'm glad you found that because I'm sure there's some issues that we need to get on. Here it is. Here, I'll share my screen and show. This is kind of a cool exploration. Basically, it's like a dedicated space for all things global.
Oh, nice.
So it's a really neat looking, it's a 7. I'm not going to play this whole thing, don't worry. Here, I'll scroll down actually to the screenshots. But yeah, like imagine you're trying to set the branding. You would just come in and set the branding and you could see exactly what it would look like. And you could say update library, which I actually think is pretty good terminology. Like I think having it be separate as like this branding library. And then you're just playing with it. It has like an isolated view, kind of like the template part mode and stuff.
That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah, it almost feels like a style guide of sorts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what's going to happen with this, but yeah, it looks like there's some other explorations. And these are linking to like the sidebar improvements that I mentioned of how they're going to overhaul that. And then this one is talking about like, where does full sighting in the site editor or whatever we're going to call it, where does that fit in the appearance menu and like the WP admin? Because that part, this is all using, this part right here is using like the navigation component. So like, who knows what that's going to look like, but I really like this approach. Like I do think from like the end user perspective, this makes way more sense. But yeah, I don't know how much momentum there'll be or like what will end up being decided. Because I know some designers were working on like this issue is pretty out of date at this point. Let me find. They worked on a design. Yeah, they worked on a design here. Actually, the prototype might be a little rough to be loading with Zoom. But this is a really neat thing to check out. I would definitely recommend playing around with this because it's like, what will this like? Do we have styles? Do we have like, what are the different entry points? So I'm sharing this partly, Joe, because just for your course, because this is the kind of stuff where it's like you can show once you're in the site editor, but like how do you actually get there? That entry point has yet to be fully determined.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, let me know for those bugs. I do think that's actually something to figure out. I forget that this video is her talking half the time, so it's not good to just play. But it does show some of the cool new, like this isolated mode. It's just like a prettier version of a lot of the, this mosaic.
Oh yeah.
Which I really like. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I said in this course, like this is really experimental and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I did actually, while I'm thinking about it, I did notice one more bug. And again, this might have been my setup. I'm not sure, but the space bar was not working when I was adding text. Like I would try to add spaces.
Was this in like a site title block or something, or?
It was, I noticed it in the cover block.
Okay.
And it was like on the last video I did too. So I'm like trying to remember now. I'm reviewing everything from my editor today, but I'm like, did I just not type in the site editor for the whole course?
Yeah.
Or like did something random change? But I noticed it was in I noticed it in the cover block.
Was the cover block in a template part, like in a header or footer?
It was cover block in the 404 template.
Cool.
I deleted the header template block.
Okay. I just want to make sure because sometimes I have seen some weird behavior when things are like embedded within.
I don't like highlight that in the video. I asked my editor to like I would like type it in like Notepad and then or Tot was the actual app, and then I'm just like swipe filter to the typed text.
You're like, look.
Yeah, because like again, that could very much be like I was in Chrome in full screen and like zoomed into 175%. So like any of those, and I was like on the last video. So I was like, I just want to finish this and I'll test it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to see it. That'll be really cool.
Yeah, I'll as soon as I upload the Vimeo videos, I'll share.
Yeah. Do it. Does anyone else have anything they wanted to? Or I can start going through some more of these that have come up. Here, this actually is a good one because it relates to some of this conversation. Closing out the things. So this is very new, 15 hours ago. I actually found this morning. But it's implementing a Mosaic View, which are some of the mock-ups. So here, I'll pull this up. I don't know, Caroline, if you've seen this, but it's basically to make it so that when you're looking through page templates, it's just clearer and you get like a preview and a visual. So these are some of the designs that I think this thread is really long. Yeah, you can see like it's outrageously long. So let me scroll down to like, yeah. So there's some really cool looking views, but this kind of goes back to what I was showing in that brief video is like, imagine you're trying to manage the templates. You could actually see what they each look like at a glance and like select them, set different descriptions. I think this one, yeah, this was the one that you can go through and search. So if you have a bunch of them, like that's something that right now isn't very, in my, like speaking personally, I find the template editing to be pretty painful. Like the little sidebar setting, like it's iterated and it's gotten better, but like I think it was the right call not to have it in 5.8, where if we can integrate some of these of like viewing and editing a template, I think this would be really, really cool. So I think they're starting to explore, like, look at that, super smooth. Wow. That animation gets me every time. I'm gonna replay that just for fun. Oh, I'm such a nerd.
That should be under like what's that Reddit? That's like
Oh yeah, the really yeah.
Gosh,
So
I can't
it's like
remember what it's called either.
yeah, it's like pleasing or not pleasing is not the right word.
No, I know what you're talking about.
We all know what I'm
Yeah.
talking
I was like, I've definitely spent too much time there.
Is it satisfying? No.
Something, yeah, maybe
It's
satisfying.
something, yes, yes, like
Mm-hmm.
satisfying is definitely the word there.
But yeah, these are really cool. So from what I was looking through, it doesn't add all the functionality. So like some of the things like searching, like I just showed, won't be there. The resizing the preview kind of look bigger, smaller. But this will be, which also I think making it easier. I'm curious what the deletion flow looks like on this. I actually haven't tested this PR. But being able to batch select, viewing them, clearing customizations, reverting to theme default, like all of these things, like once this is merged, I'm going to be for sure testing this. Because I currently think the multi-entity saving flow and just generally speaking, like any sort of revert or deletion, someone may not understand. Like, for example, in the deletion flow, does it say this will reset things for this, this, and this, and this, like every page using this template? But I do think having this Mosaic View is going to be huge. I don't think there's any screenshots on this yet because it's just linked to the designs. But this is definitely one to keep an eye out for. And I'm not quite sure actually. Yeah, this might just be in the site editor. I wonder how it'll integrate with the template editor, and I don't quite know for this one. Oh yeah, these will have to be fixed. Oh yeah, this is another weird one, is some of the previews not taking into account global styles. It's the same thing with like patterns. Like if you see a pattern and you're like, oh, that looks really cool, and you put it on my site and it's not actually using your site's colors, you have to change all of that. I've been thinking a lot about that problem recently.
Yeah, same here. I think it's because we don't have standardized ways to declare these colors, and so I worked with those two themes, Clove and was it Nalidi from NRL Design, and I helped her because she has two full site editing themes that are pretty good, and so I helped her kind of standardize those slugs across the board so that when her patterns are added, they do change from one to the other as like a proof of concept. And I think it's just, I know when you hear the word standardization with themes, I think folks really get kind of antsy about it because they don't want designs that look the same. But I think the idea of the slugs being standardized doesn't affect the output of what happens, like the colors and whatnot. It just makes them transferable between themes, which is something we definitely have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like adding, the standard like body classes for category or whatever, right? Like that way the theme developers know how to style certain things.
Exactly, and the pattern creators, I guess you could say the same thing because they're going to be added into the repo, and if it has a black background and a white text, and you add it to your theme should inherit those colors. Like so, if using foreground or background colors. So if your foreground color is just cool pink and the background is white, then the pattern should look like that when it gets added, not look like the pattern. At least I think so. So I've been leaning into that big time.
Yeah, because Carolina, yeah.
I mean, this is part of the survey that just went up. I did start out with having, named colors, and the slug was also the color name. But for me, this was a lot about, what is visible in the editor when you're selecting colors. Is a user going to understand what the primary is? Or is it going to want to select a light blue color? So this is difficult for me, but yes, when I hear your reasons for it and other people's reasons for selecting these types of slugs and names, the benefits becomes more obvious.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, your slugs don't have to match the text label that it shows. Like the text label can, so what I've experimented with is, primary, secondary, tertiary colors, but it's blue, red, purple in the UI. And then, if you change to a theme that uses green, red, yellow, then those colors are still green, red, yellow, but the slugs are still primary, secondary, tertiary. So I feel like that's like a mix of the best of both. So they're standardized, but they're also comfortable and familiar. But that's just what I've been experimenting with to see how it works, transferring across different themes.
Yeah, but it's important to have a standard now, early, for team artists to adopt it. Otherwise, we're gonna end up with a bit of chaos.
Right.
It is difficult. It is always difficult to make a large amount of people do the same thing.
I know. And even, you know, what's tough is like the experimental themes do things differently already. So I've been looking through those as well and trying to figure out, like, I might submit some PRs just to at least a proof of concept, like, hey, like, here's how we can migrate these so that at least like this first batch of solid themes do things the same way, so that folks that are learning can dive in and like, oh, okay, let's do that. And then maybe in the future we abstract the slugs from the color classes and whatnot within theme.json, and we don't even need them. It's just the first value is the primary one. I don't know that, but you know, I think right now, yeah, coming up with that standardization, like you said, is very important early on, which is why I helped out NRL to get that across her themes, and it's cool to see it working, like between her two themes, like all the colors like migrate.
Yeah, that's so cool. And it's a great user experience where someone's able to actually see the benefit of that, because that's one of the things I was talking to some designers this week is the switching theme flow. Like, I know, Rich, we've talked about, like, and I probably talked to a lot of you about this, but you know, like what templates move over. If it's a custom template, you kind of expect, like, I know Justin's brought this up a bunch, and like same with the color like you want to make sure your patterns look the same, because if you switch a theme and all of a sudden everything's like borked colors wise, like that's going to be a huge cleanup. But if it works, that kind of magic, I think, will be really cool.
Yeah, in the worst case scenario is you switch and you don't have, you know, the green slug anymore. You have, you know, red, and now everything that was green is nothing. You just have this weird has background class added to things with the green, but there's no actual color assigned to it. So you end up just having like elements that are just out of shape and just missing, you know, or I mean, just white on the page and white on white. You can't see it anymore. And you'll never know if you have, you know, 50 posts. It's hard to go back and look at all of them.
Yeah, like,
I'm running into that myself. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not only team switching, it's also if your team is updated, because, you know, sometimes it's actually bugs that we have to solve. So that flow also needs to be improved.
Yeah. And switching between, you know, a classic hybrid block, like it's going to be really interesting to explain to users.
I haven't
sure
gotten that far yet.
I just recently got into that headspace because someone asked me about it, and I was like, oh dear, like, yeah, this is going to be really tricky. Speaking of, I was going to plug this at the end, but since Carolina brought it up, we'd love to have thoughts on this, because kind of everything you're talking about, I was chatting with Matthias this week, who does a lot of stuff with like looking out into the future about Gutenberg, and figured this would be a great way to get kind of that standardization of like, what are people doing now that theme.json is launched? What are people doing? What can we bake back into core? What approach can we take? How can we standardize things? What's a best practice? And also like what's still needed. It's a very, very basic survey. And there's a spot at the end where you can just share whatever you want. So feel free to blow that up, and I'll do a recap of what people share and make it so that people can, I'll remove contact information, but we'll make sure the information is shared back publicly also on Make Test. So it'd be really cool to have this stuff documented. I'll close that out. Let me close this. Let's jump back into what's another. Oh, this will be a fun one. Speaking of patterns, very experimental work in progress PR, but one of the things that's come up with kind of across different situations is just responsive font sizes. So a pattern might look really good, you know, when you insert it on the web, but then if you scale it down, there's a huge issue with font sizes not scaling as well. So Riyadh's trying to figure out a way to work around that, which I'm really excited about, because it's another one of those things where, you know, just because it looks cool when you first start, what about in these different situations? We kind of need to start filling in the gaps here. So it's a very early PR, but it's something I'm definitely keeping my eye on. that I'm excited about. I didn't realize it was only in drafts too.
I figured out a way to do it within theme.json. It's just not crazy elegant. So I basically set variables and use a scale within those variables, and then use those variables as a reference for the min and max within the clamp function.
Oh, interesting.
So it's kind of messy, but it works. It's just, yeah. I actually updated my website. I didn't really announce or anything because I'm still kind of tweaking things, but I updated my site to use a full site editing theme over this week.
Oh, did you? I was just looking at your site because I was this one. I loved this post. I'll plug your post now.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, this is really awesome.
Yeah, so this is all full site editing here.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I'm doing some. So all the colors are using the sequential stuff, so that way if I modify it, like the blue doesn't have to stay blue even. And I baked in like using theme.json to declare dark mode colors as well. So that it's like an OS level.
Is the theme?
And then I ran into.
Here we go. This is what I will.
No, I haven't released it yet. That's just the it's still, so it's like it's theme.json, but it's still using a lot of CSS to tweak things.
I've heard that from a lot of folks.
Yeah, and I'm kind of using that to drive like a couple issues that I'm creating and things that I had to override within core. And I did find one bug with the site editor, like when you're using a post as your homepage, like the more block doesn't actually like work. It doesn't stop the content. So on the in the site editor, your content still goes all the way down.
Got it. Is that like using post as a homepage? Okay, I got it. This is always the best part of this, is I end up finding like a list of bugs that I'm like gonna have to go test right after. That's really cool though. Yeah, let me put this into the notes. Yeah, I've heard from a couple folks, Herb, I was talking to you about this, but having to use more CSS still, like you're kind of just having to fill in gaps until theme.json and core catches up. And that's another thing, like anything you're having to do that with, reporting that back into GitHub is a huge help.
Yeah, a big one, which I know it's kind of finicky right now, but the idea that the layout settings for wide and content, like how those are supposed to, like those work, but and on the front end they work too, but you have the jitter, like from because it's inline, so it's trying to, your content stays wide and it flashes back to normal. So I had to override that and add my own CSS to target the same things that the group is getting targeted as. What did I use? I don't know if anyone else has seen this.
No, I have not.
I basically did that. I pasted it in the chat.
Sweet.
It's not great having to use.
Weird.
I mean, I could abstract that, but it's not a CSS property, or it's not a custom property to use. So I had to just plug it in.
Also, I just realized I had been ignoring the chat this whole time. Pull up. Yeah. Oh, nice. I'm gonna literally copy this stuff. Sweet. Paul, I totally missed that you shared. What are you just dropping? Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. Speaking of the layout stuff, I don't know if you've all seen the Flex layout work as well. But this is another thing that's, I don't know. Yeah. I was like, this was just added. But there's a ton more to do. I mean, this is very, very, very early stages. And like it says on here, like definitely it's another thing to give feedback on, especially for people in the theme world. I'll drop this into the chat. It's funny, normally I'm like link dropping all the time, and now I'm getting lazy. But yeah, this is another one of those things where this is where it's like people who are building these themes are gonna have to be constantly updating stuff. But I do think a lot of the issues that we found with the outreach program, where people are trying to have different configurations, these sorts of additions will be really helpful as long as they're presented intuitively. Because I know that's one thing that's really confusing right now is sometimes you have to, for an end user, it's like, oh, I have to like use the list view to find the group block to then set this. Like,
Yep.
it's can be very cumbersome right now, switching between the levels. There was one, I can't remember, template parts where you had to jump around and set, I think I opened an issue for it. Maybe Carolina, you had an open issue for it, but setting width for template parts is like the strangest experience. Let's see if I can find, oh, it was me.
I didn't recall that.
Yeah. So like this is a short video, but it's like you have to set it, nothing changes. You're like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. If you view it on the front end, because there's a lot of like the what you see is what you get aspect is not happening.
Yeah. Is it related? I think it might be related to how nested things are.
Yep. So you have to.
Yeah.
I've noticed the same thing with the reusable block in core. Like.
And these bugs will behave differently depending on if you're in a template editor, like in this video right now, or in the site editor. And that is also complicated.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that eventually the site editor will be the post editor? Like it'll be the same thing?
Oh, I don't know. Like you would just write your content in the site editor?
Right,
it kind of can be right now, right? Because in the site editor, you can select specific content, and if you change that content, it updates.
Well, right now it is, but they're gonna eventually, kind of similar with the template editor, where like you can add a post content block, but it's locked down. Like you can't edit the content. I have a feeling that's one of the things to figure out is when you're editing different contexts. I'm trying to figure out if they added in. Okay, yeah. So you notice how you still can't add a post from this page or from this navigation component. That's an open issue. So if they integrate this, if they make it so that you can actually add your content in here, I could see where you could just end up switching between different modes. They would just have to make it more intuitive. And I think the thing that bums me out right now a bit is like the template editor with the dark gray backgrounds. Like, what are we just gonna have different colors for different, like what's the game plan long term with that? Because I think just like having the different colors as a nudge to the user, like, hey, you're in this different editing mode. Like we can't do that with everything. The post editor can't be like background lists, then the template editor has this, then how do you know you're in the site editor? Like these are the sort of visual consistencies that I'd want to see. And this will actually show you the overlay. I don't know if y'all could see the overlays, see how this is like, this was another recent kind of solution to a problem where people were having a hard time figuring out how to select an actual like template part. And I don't really know how much I like it.
I've noticed, and something I pointed out in the course is how helpful like the info and outline views are. Because like in the I don't know if we see this in the full site editor, but like in the block editor, you click info, and then if you click one of the blocks, it gets outlined. And so that's how so like if you click and then like, so if you do like columns, the whole I do it specifically with reusable blocks because like 90% of the time I accidentally delete the content inside the reusable block and not the reusable block itself. But luckily I always know because it like tells me when I save the post.
They're like, hey, you changed this.
And I'm like, wait, no, I didn't mean to.
Which actually is, oh man, I'm not going to find this issue fast enough. There's a design that's being worked on. Oh man, let's see if I can find it. This is always fun. Is it this? Yes, I think it's this. And I don't really know how to feel about this because this gets into the multi-entity saving stuff too. But they're basically looking to have a save button. I'll scroll down to like updated. Yeah, here we go. I think this is the most, but having a save button in this. So like, let's say you make changes to reusable block and then you can hit save. So here's what you would do. You'd hit save and then it would also, I think, show, or like it would resolve it in multi-entity saving where you wouldn't actually have to save there again. I can't remember the behavior for this. But my thing is I'm like, the common behavior for people with reusable blocks is not making changes to the reusable block itself and then saving it. it's convert to blocks. Like in the emphasis on the action should not be on, hey, you're making changes and saving it. It should be on the like convert to blocks thing. So I gave that feedback, but I think I don't know if they're going to move forward with this, but it seems like it's still in a lot of progress.
Yeah. I'll +1 that feedback because I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of common feedback I get on my YouTube videos and from my students is like why can't we do like a block pattern thing where we save like block patterns the same way we save reusable blocks? And
interesting.
Yeah. I suspect there's like, I mean, to create a reusable block, you have to like encode the markup, and I suspect there's like some reason for that too, but that's something I hear because you can create the reusable block and then convert to blocks, but having the block pattern that you can save yourself without needing to write a plugin is common feedback I've seen, at least.
Which I think eventually with the patterns directory, they've talked about having it so it can be a user submitted thing, and there's like a really easy flow. I mean, mind you, whoever's going to have to review that's not going to be a blast. I think there might actually be a post on Make Design. This is not.
I don't know why that's not a default functionality, other than it could be confusing for folks to try to understand what patterns and reusable blocks are and how that works. But that's not the real problem. I mean, I think that's confusing either way. Not having a UI doesn't mean it's not confusing.
Yeah.
But we did add that functionality within CoBlocks last year. And I think there is a plugin that does it that Justin released as well.
Yeah, Justin Tadlock, I think did that, released that.
Yeah, I think in the long run, having that would be really cool. This is also where it's really funny because like patterns versus reusable blocks versus templates versus template, like all these like there's so much of a Venn diagram of understanding that like even as someone who's deep in it, sometimes I like end up on the back foot trying to explain like when you should use each one,
Yeah. I got a comment on, go ahead, Carolina.
Yes, when there's a block pattern stop being a pattern because it's large enough to be a template. It's not so easy, especially right now when it's so much easier to select a block pattern and drag it than select a template.
Yeah.
It's very easy to start creating too large patterns.
Yeah. I got really interesting feedback, and I'm like trying to like grok what this person said. I feel we're missing an option, a block of which the design can be centrally changed, but the content can be different for each instance. And I feel like that's already block. Isn't that's the
reusable
whole purpose
blocks
of block patterns? Yeah, it's like one of those things already, right?
Yeah, I would say it's reusable blocks.
Yeah. But that was like a comment on like what's the difference between reusable blocks and block patterns, and I'm like,
yeah,
block
no, that's
patterns like
interesting.
let you keep the design but change the content pretty much,
and you're not using it across lots of different, like you could use it across lots of different things, but it's all local, where like
but reusable blocks, it's, I think what they want is a reusable block. If it's like a block pattern, it's like a combination of the two, where you have a block pattern that when you change it in one place, the design changes everywhere, I think is what they want. But it's like,
because you're kind of merging the two. Yeah, that is really interesting. So what they probably want is like a pattern that they're initially starting with that they like they're pulling from patterns that they then make a reusable block and use in different places, is what it sounds
like. Right.
So sort of like what a template part was supposed to be until we discovered that styling was broken.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So just to mention it for the video, right now, if you had a template part and you had changes to it and you had the same template part to a different page and you changed the color, then only one of the template parts actually changed color. It doesn't inherit it across the whole website.
Yeah.
The content is the same, but not the colors and styles.
Right.
I'll find that issue after, actually. Yeah, because I remember seeing that and being like, oh dear. Like, it's like, this feels like we should fix that pretty soon. Yeah. this is kind of related, but I was talking to a couple different folks, actually Anna, who created two of the block themes, and she was asking about this idea. And WordPress.com did this. So like you can start from like choose a template, which is kind of interesting. And I think for a user, it's definitely ideal. So if you're creating a new page, you can just choose a template from it. And this kind of merges the idea of like, you're not editing a template, like, but you're basically having like patterns pre-built in, which is pretty cool. And I think in the long run, you go through all of these, but like, I don't know if there's any other images on here. There might not be, no. But yeah, this is, I think, a really good discussion. I'll drop this in the chat to read through, because I do think this kind of merges the different, oh my gosh, happy birthday. How did I miss that? Also, it's my birthday. Oh, we'll sing you happy birthday at the end. I'm a horrible singer. I'm sorry Great Britain lost in the Olympics this morning. I was hoping they would win for women's football, but back to
US
Glorious.
one?
The US won.
Well, all right, that's what I saw. That's what I thought.
Oh, right before this damn call, I was like, the PKs need to be done with before this call, or I'm gonna be out of my mind, like checking things and not paying attention. But yeah, we barely eked out a win. Our goalkeeper saved 2 PKs. This is very important information to have in a recorded call. But yeah, I'm like really excited about these kinds of ideas where it's, again, like the foundation is built, but then how do we build upon it, and bring these kind of ideas together? Because a user shouldn't have to know about all this stuff. And I think right now it still is in a place where the user does need to know. Otherwise, they're going to have their information architecture like set up in a really strange way across the site, where if we can make it really easy for them to make good decisions, I think it'd be, and like a theme could obviously set these. Like that could be part of what a theme offers, are these various things to choose from.
I feel like the Cadence theme does this pretty well. They have like, I think they're called starter templates, but then they also just released something called like wireframes, which is these kind of like, there's not real content, but it's like kind of like placeholder blocks. I think I haven't dug into it deeply yet. I'm probably gonna make a video about that. But I think it's similar to like what Anders Naren did with Excel with the like the 3 gallery pattern, where it's like, it's just kind of like the generic image placeholder thing. I think that's what the Cadence wireframes are like.
Yeah, this sort of stuff I think is really cool. I was talking with someone who made a bunch of these kinds of things for Elementor, where people could just mass download and then use them. And so like, I think there's a whole kind of like patterns, there's like a whole world to explore with this kind of stuff if we can get the functionality put in.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is pretty cool.
I don't want to, you have like block, or you have like block packs, and you have like one of Astra's, I think, premium plugins is just like Beaver Builder site templates and stuff like that. So
yeah, huge room for this kind of stuff. I think I might call it from here, just so we don't go for too long. I try to be respectful of people's time. I will just plug this final, another plug for this, and another happy birthday. I feel like it's super exciting to be celebrating someone's birthday in real time from afar. Across the world. You have people across the world wishing you happy birthday. Pretty cool. But yeah, if folks are able to fill out the survey, and I'm very appreciative of each of you spending time on a Friday, no less, 21 again. I like that. Yeah, and thank you for spending time with all of us.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something, Herb? Sorry.
It's again, not just again.
again.
And again.
Amazing. Cool. Let me stop the recording. Where's that button? They always hide it.